Here, bringing you the IM3 6-3 extra practice number 3 solutions on adding and subtracting rational expressions. This one has a puzzle, so let's go ahead and check that out. So here's the puzzle that goes with this extra practice. In this puzzle, we're trying to solve the riddle of what lives in the sea and yells. To figure this out, we have to simplify all of these rational expressions, and each time we simplify one of these, we have to find the answer down below and then cross off the box that has that answer. So once we've crossed off all 12 of whatever boxes we're supposed to cross off, the remaining letters, if we put them all in a row in these boxes down here, will spell out the answer. So let's go ahead and give this one a shot. So here we go with our opening problem, trying to do 3n over 7 plus n over 14. For all of these problems, my strategy at the very beginning is going to be to figure out a common denominator, get each fraction in terms of that denominator, and then add them together and do any reducing I need at the end. So taking a look at my denominators, they're not the same. 7 and 14, so what's the smallest number that 7 and 14 both go into? As a basic strategy, I like to start with the larger number and then just keep taking multiples of that until I get something that's also divisible by the smaller number, or numbers. So 14 is already divisible by 7 and itself, so that means 14 is our least common denominator. Now I'm going to multiply each fraction by whatever it needs to get that LCD in the denominator. And you can do this, you can figure this out by just dividing the LCD by whatever is already in the denominator. So for example, 14 divided by 7 is 2. So I'm going to multiply this first fraction by 2, but I have to do 2 over 2 because I'm really just multiplying by 1. So I'm not changing the value, I'm just changing how it looks. And then this other fraction with a 14 is already good because it already has the LCD. So for my first fraction, 2 times 3n is going to be 6n, and then 2 times 7 gives me 14, which is what I wanted. Second fraction I'm just going to leave for now because it didn't need any changes. At this point, when I have the same denominator, I'm going to add just the numerators and keep the denominator the same. It's like adding x's, essentially. So I have 6n plus n is 7n over my common denominator of 14. And now taking a quick look, it looks like I can reduce the 7 and the 14 into 1 over 2. So when the dust settles, I have n over 2 for my final answer. Now I have to find that in the boxes down below, and I see it right here. This is the TH. I'm going to cross that off and move on to the next problem. Okay, here we go with number 2. Taking a look at my denominators, they're not the same, so I need an LCD for these. Let's start with 15. Now 15 is divisible by 5, so 15 itself is the common denominator. So I'm going to leave my first fraction the same because it's already got that denominator. For the next one, to make this 5 into a 15, I have to multiply by 3 over 3. So first fraction stays the same for now. Second fraction, 3 times 2n is 6n, and then 3 times 5 is the 15 that I was trying to get. 4n plus 6n gives me 10n over my denominator of 15. And then 10 over 15, I can reduce that by 5 to get me 2 over 3. So then I have a 2n in my numerator and a 3 in the denominator. Looking for 2n over 3, and I see that down here in the lower left. Let's cross that off. EA is gone, and we go on to the next. For this problem, this is the first one where I've got not 2, but 3 fractions that I have to merge into 1. So let's look for common denominators. Start with my biggest number, 12. 12 is divisible by 3, so that's good. 12 is also divisible by 4. So that means 12 is our LCD on this one. We didn't even have to do any other work. Now I'm going to convert each of these fractions to have that common denominator. First fraction, to make 3 into 12, I need to multiply that by 4 over 4. For the next fraction, to make 4 into 12, I need to multiply by 3 over 3. And the last fraction already has 12, so I'm just going to leave that the way it is. Going through and simplifying these a bit, 5n times 4 gives me a 20n over 12. Next up, 7 times 3 is 21, again over 12. And then last fraction I'll leave for now. At this point, let me go ahead and add my numerators together. Now I've got two types of things, right? We've got these n's, we also have a constant. So just be careful about adding like terms here. So 20n gets combined with 11n, that's going to be 31n, and I still have this 21 that just has to get added up there. Can't really combine it at all with the 31n. We have our common denominator of 12. And let me see, can I reduce this? Can I factor the numerator at all? It doesn't look like it. So I'm actually done. This is as good as it's going to get. So 31n plus 21 over 12 right down here. OF is gone. There we go. For this next problem, we have a little bit more going on in the numerator, but that's not going to change how we start the problem by trying to find a common denominator. So the bigger of the numbers down there, 6, is divisible by 2, so 6 then is my LCD. And the first fraction is actually good the way it is, but my second fraction, I need to turn that 2 into a 6. I can do that by multiplying that whole fraction by 3 over 3. And when so my first fraction, I'll just keep bringing that down. My second fraction, when I multiply by 3, I am going to have to distribute to this 3n minus 1. So I'm going to have upstairs, this is going to be 9n, and then we have negative 3. That's all going to be over 6, which was the idea there. Now I'm going to go ahead and combine these into one big fraction since I have that common denominator. So my fraction that I get is going to have a denominator of 6. Let's figure out the numerator now. 4n plus 9n, that's going to be 13n. And then 7 plus negative 3 gives me a plus 4. I can't factor 13n plus 4 at all, so I'm going to have to keep that as my final answer then. And I see that, let's see, a 13 and a 4, I see that right here, ES, so cross that off. Let's go ahead and take a look at these denominators. They're different, so we need an LCD. Between 5 and 10, 10's bigger and 5 goes into it, so 10 is the LCD for this one. So let's figure out what I need to multiply each fraction by to get that LCD. The first fraction, we've got 5 in the denominator, so I'd need to multiply that by a 2 to get 10. So I've got first fraction times 2 over 2. For the next one, I'm just going to keep that the way it is because I've already got 10 in that denominator. So for the left fraction, let me distribute this 2. So that's going to be a 4n minus 12 all over 10. Second fraction hasn't changed yet. But now we're going to add these together. So when I do that, I'll have a common denominator of 10. And then I've got like terms to combine. 4n plus n gives me 5n. Negative 12 plus negative 3, that's going to be negative 15. And let me just double check to see if I can factor and reduce this further. I can definitely take a 5 out of my numerator. So let me do that. 5 comes out. That leaves me with a n minus 3. And this 5 can be reduced with the 10 here to give me 1 over 2. So when the dust settles, I've got 1 times n minus 3, or just simply n minus 3, over 2. Now let me see if I can match that down here. I see an n minus 3 over 2 right here, so let's cross that off, and it's on to the next. Next up, we've got a problem with 3 fractions in it that we have to combine. Taking a look at my denominators, 12 is the biggest out of them, and it is also divisible by 4 and by 6. So 12 then is my LCD. So to multiply each of these by something to get me 12, my first fraction, to get 4 to become 12, I need to multiply that by 3 over 3. For the next one, for 6, I need to multiply by 2 over 2. 2 times 6 gives me 12. And then the last fraction's fine the way it is. It's already got a 12. Going through now and simplifying, 3 times 5n gives me a 15n, and then we have a 12 down there. Next, we have a plus 2n over 12. 7n over 12 hasn't changed. And now I can add all these together. We have a common denominator of 12, and then 24 if I add 15, 2, and 7 together to get the 24n. Now I can reduce this a little bit. That reduces to get me just 2n, 24 divided by 12 being 2. And I see 2n, that's pretty easy to spot right here. That's fi. There we go. For this one, now we have some x's in the denominator, so that's going to make a little bit of a difference. When I'm getting my LCD, I need a number that 6 and 9 both go into, and I also need an x. So 9's the bigger number, 6 does not go into that. So the next multiple of 9 is 18. 6 does go into that. So 18, and then they both have an x, so I need an x in my LCD. Now to get this LCD in the first fraction, 18x divided by 6x would be 3. So if I multiply this first thing by 3 over 3, that'll help me out. And then 18x divided by 9x would give me 2. So I'll have to multiply the second fraction by 2 over 2. Let's distribute and simplify. First fraction, 3 times 3x is 9x. Then we have a negative 6 in there, along with the 18x in the bottom that I was trying to get all along. For the next fraction, distributing my 2, I've got a 10x plus 2, and then 18x down there. So I've got a common denominator of 18x when I add those together. And now for the x's upstairs, I've got 9 and 10x gives me 19x. And then negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. Doing a quick check, I can't factor or reduce anything in any way here. This is as good as it's going to get. So let me find that down here. 19x minus 4 over 18x. There we go. Cross that off. Next up, number 8. Let's look at our denominators. 15 and 10, those are different. So let's get a common denominator. Bigger number is 15. 10 does not go into that, so let me take some multiples of 15. The next one is 30, which 10 does go into. So 30 then is our LCD here, and there was nothing else to worry about. 30 divided by 15 is 2, so 2 over 2 is what I'm multiplying that first fraction by. And then for the next one, 30 divided by 10 is 3, so 3 over 3 is what gets multiplied by that second fraction. Simplifying each of these, first fraction, distributing this 2, we've got a 12x plus 14, and then that's all over 2 times 15, which is 30. For the next fraction, we have a 3x minus 9, all over 30. Same denominator, let's add those together. So we have a 30 for our common denominator. For the x's in the numerator, 12x plus 3x, that's 15x. And then 14 plus negative 9, that's going to be 5. All right, now I can factor my numerator a little bit, so I better do that just to make sure. If I take out a 5 there, I get 3x plus 1, which I can't really do much with, but the 5 and the 30 can reduce to give me 1 over 6. So that then simplifies to 3x plus 1 all over 6. And then I see that right here down below, this ND. Let's cross that off. On this one, we've got 3x and 5x for denominators. So let me get the LCD for those. Let's look at the constants first, 3 and 5. 5's the bigger one. 3 does not go into 5, so let me take some multiples of 5. The next one is 10. 3 does not go into 10. After that, we have 15. 3 does go into 15, so 15 is part of our LCD. And at least one of these has an x. Actually, they both do, so I need an x in there as well. Now, what am I multiplying each of these fractions by? 15x divided by 3x is 5, so 5 over 5 for that first one. And then 15x over 5x is 3, so 3 over 3 for that second fraction. All right, distributing that out, we have 5 times this numerator here. That's going to be 20x minus 5, all over 15x. And then over here we have 3 times x minus, this will be 24 if I multiply those, all over 15x. Adding these together, we have 15x for my common denominator. And then for the x's in the numerator, 20x and 3x adds up to 23x. Negative 5 add to negative 24, that's negative 29. There are no common factors for 23x and 29, so I can't factor or reduce this at all. So this is just going to be my answer, which I see down here in the lower right, so cross off those double L's. For number 10, we're back to a problem with 3 fractions to add together. These all have different denominators. Let's look at the numbers first in getting an LCD. So we have 3, 2, and 6. 6 is the biggest, and it is divisible by 3 and 2. So 6 goes in the LCD, and at least one of these has an x, so we have an x in there as well. All right, so I need to turn each of these denominators into 6x. So if I multiply this 3x by 2, so 2 over 2 for the first fraction, that'll take care of that one. For the next one, 6x divided by 2x is 3, so 3 over 3 for that next one. And then finally, this one is already perfect the way it is, so I'll just keep that and bring it down. All right, for this one, we've got 2 being distributed, so that's going to be a 10x plus 2 all over 6x if we multiply that. Next fraction, distributing this 3, we've got 9x plus 12 all over 6x. Last fraction doesn't change. So I have a common denominator of 6x. And then let me add up my x's. We have 10x plus 9x plus 1x. That's a grand total of 20x. And then 2 plus 12 plus another 2 is 16. I can take a 4 out of that. So that leaves me with 5x plus 4 in there. And not much else I can do other than reducing the 4 and the 6. That reduces to 2 over 3. So when the dust settles, I have 2 parentheses 5x plus 4 all over 3x. And if I can find that down here, there it is, this sh. So let me cross that out. On to the next. Here we go again. 3 more fractions. We've got an LCD now that needs to incorporate all of these denominators. The biggest number out of all of them is 20, which also happens to be divisible by 5 and 4, so that works out. In addition to 20, we also need an x in our LCD, since not only do these all have them, but at least one of them does. So to get 20x in my denominator, 20x divided by this 5x down here is 4. So let me multiply my first fraction by 4 over 4. And you might have noticed I hadn't mentioned it, but I've been putting parentheses around here. Even though there's kind of an invisible parentheses there, I feel it's good to put it in just so we don't forget to distribute when it comes time to do that. Now the next fraction doesn't need anything special. It's already good the way it is with 20x. Last fraction, 20x divided by 4x is 5, so 5 over 5 for that one. Going back through, first fraction, 4 distributed gives us 16x plus 8. 5x times 4 is 20x. Next fraction didn't change. Last fraction, we have 5 distributed to get 10x minus 15 all over 20x. This gives us a common denominator of 20x. Adding my x's in the numerator up, we have 16 plus 10 plus another 10. That's a grand total of 36x rather, 36. And then 8 plus negative 1 plus negative 15, I believe that's negative 8. There we go. Now I can take a 4 out of all of these things. So let me take a 4 out of 36x and 8. That gives me 9x minus 2. 4 and 20 reduces to 1 over 5. So then I end up with 9x minus 2 over 5x. And I see that right down here, so cross that off, and it's on to the final problem. For this last one, we again have 3 fractions, and this time we run into a little bit of trouble. 10 is the biggest number, but it's not divisible by 5. Well, it is divisible by 5, but not by 6. So we start taking multiples of 10 until we get something that works. The next one up is 20, not divisible by 6. The next one up is 30, that's divisible by 6. So our LCD is 30. 30 over 5 would give us 6, so 6 over 6 is what we'll multiply that first fraction by. 30 over 6 would give us 5, so the x over 6 gets multiplied by 5 over 5. And then this last one gets multiplied by 3 over 3 to get 30 down there. Going through and simplifying a little bit, distributing the 6 here, we have 12x minus 6 over 30. Next up, we have a 5x over 30. And then finally, distributing this 3, that gives us 24 minus 9x, all over 30. So we have a common denominator of 30. Adding up my x's, we have 12x plus 5x is 17x, plus negative 9x is going to be 8x. And then we have negative 6 plus 24, that's going to be plus 18. I can take a 2 out of my numerator. That's going to be 4x plus 9 in there. And then the 2 and the 30 here can reduce to give me 1 over 15. So then 4x plus 9 over 15. And I see that right here, cross that off, and we can now solve the puzzle. All right, so let's figure out the solution to the riddle, what lives in the sea in yells? So the letters that we haven't crossed off thus far, we have an AC, an LA, an MS. So I'm thinking that A is probably going to be its own word, and then CLA, let's see, M, that spells clam, so I think clam is the next word. Then we have an S, HO, still doesn't, that's show, that doesn't give me anything. UT, that's shout, but let's keep going. We have an that we end with, so shouter sounds like a word. So what lives in the sea and yells? A clam chowder, like clam chowder that you would eat. All right, that was interesting. Till next time, Mr. Sutton signing off.